Hello everyone, I'm Heather and this is Heather Travels. Thanks for clicking on this video today. Walt Disney World's second theme park, Epcot, opened on October 1st, 1982. Epcot, which is an acronym that stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, was originally envisioned by Walt Disney as an actual place where people would live and work as an actual community. But after Walt Disney's death, the Imagineers for Disney changed direction and decided to make Epcot into the second theme park at Walt Disney World. If you've never been to Epcot, let me explain a little bit about how it's set up. Currently, and prior to some major construction and the pandemic, Epcot was divided into two halves, Future World and World Showcase. Future World is currently under major construction, and I'm not exactly sure if what they had planned to do with that half of the park is actually going to come to fruition because of world events and what's happened lately. So they tore a lot of things down and hadn't actually gotten to the point where they were rebuilding the things that they were going to do. I do know that the renovation of Spaceship Earth that was planned has been canceled. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with the Future World side of Epcot in the future. But World Showcase, which is a series of 11 country pavilions around World Showcase Lagoon, there are not any major changes planned for World Showcase. World Showcase is basically going to stay the way it is. In today's video, I want to focus on World Showcase and on each of the 11 pavilions in World Showcase. And I'm going to share with you my favorite thing from each pavilion and one thing from each pavilion that I have not done yet that I would like to try. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go around World Showcase in a clockwise direction. And I'm going to start as if you were walking into World Showcase from the current Future World half. So if you come in and you go to the left, kind of left and forward clockwise, the first pavilion that you come to is Mexico. The Mexico Pavilion has 2 table service restaurants, 1 counter service restaurant, 2 bars, and 1 ride, the Grand Fiesta Tour, which is a boat ride through the interior of part of the Mexico Pavilion. And it's actually the Grand Fiesta Tour with the 3 caballeros, and it's Donald Duck and the other 2 characters. And it's kind of similar to, I guess you could say, it's very similar to It's a Small World in that it's a boat ride with these little animatronic cute figures, and then there's projected animation of the 3 caballeros throughout the ride. So that's the ride that's there. One thing I do want to mention before I continue is I'm not going to include every single thing that you can see in each of the pavilions. I'm just going to give you kind of the highlights. There are a lot of other things to see in each of the pavilions besides what I'm going to mention here. There are gardens and there are little museum type things, like I'm thinking of in Norway, in Morocco, and there's also many stores. There are lots of gift shops, small and large, in each of the pavilions, and there's just lots of neat things to look at. Okay, and then one thing that I have not done in the Mexico Pavilion, but that I would like to try, is I would like to eat at La Hacienda de San Angel, which is the other table service restaurant that I haven't eaten at. I have eaten at San Angel Inn, which is inside the pyramid in the Mexico Pavilion, several times, but I've never eaten at La Hacienda de San Angel, which is kind of across the walkway along the water side. And that's something that I'd like to do in the Mexico Pavilion. The next pavilion that we come to is the Norway Pavilion. The Norway Pavilion has 1 table service restaurant, and this is the only character dining experience in World Showcase. It's Akershus, and it's a princess dining experience inside a castle environment. I always suggest to people, if you can't get a reservation at Cinderella's royal table, that Akershus is a really great backup. And actually, I like Akershus much better than Cinderella's royal table. They have kind of a typical breakfast offerings at breakfast, and then they have Norwegian focused food at lunch and dinner. There's one counter service restaurant in the Norway Pavilion, and there is one ride, Frozen Ever After. If you're not aware, Frozen Ever After, prior to being changed, was Maelstrom. They kept the basic ride system in place, which is also a boat ride, but before it focused on like the history and culture of Norway, and now it focuses completely on the movie Frozen and the characters from Frozen. It's a really great ride. My favorite thing in the Norway Pavilion, although I love the Norway Pavilion, I have a lot of things I really like in the Norway Pavilion, but my favorite thing is the ride Frozen Ever After. One thing in the Norway Pavilion that I would like to try that I have not is to meet Anna and Elsa in their summer house. I did meet Anna and Elsa before they built the summer house for them in the Norway Pavilion, when they were located in Princess Fairytale Hall in Magic Kingdom, but I have not met them at their summer house in the Norway Pavilion. It wasn't built yet when we were there in 2015. It was open when we were there on our last trip in 2019, but we just didn't bother going in to meet them. The wait time might have been longer. We just didn't care to. So that is something that I would like to do, mainly because I'd like to see inside there and see what it's like. The next pavilion that we come to in our clockwise tour around the world showcase is the China Pavilion. The China Pavilion has one table service restaurant, one counter service restaurant, and then it has a film called Reflections of China, which is a 360 degree, so it's all around you, circle vision film. You do have to stand. There are a few benches in the way back that you can sit in if you need to, but I actually don't mind standing at all. There's like railings you can kind of lean on. My favorite thing in the China Pavilion is the Reflections of China film. I really enjoy that film. I think it's very well done. It's really beautiful. One thing that I would like to try in the China Pavilion that I have not is I would like to eat at the Nine Dragons restaurant, which is the table service restaurant in the China Pavilion. The next pavilion that we come to is the Germany Pavilion. This has one table service and one counter service restaurant. The table service restaurant is a little bit unique. It's called Beer Garden, and it's like you're inside a German beer garden at night, but it's inside, but it's like you're outside. And it has live music and kind of an interactive show while you're eating its buffet. Now, who's to say in the future? I'm not sure what's going to happen with the buffets at Walt Disney World. We're going to have to see what happens with that. But my favorite thing at the Germany Pavilion is there's a little train set. There's a little train set kind of to one side of the pavilion, and it's like a little miniature village in Germany with a train set, and I just really think that's cute, and I like looking at it. And one thing that I would like to try in the Germany Pavilion that I have not tried is to eat at Beer Garden. It's supposed to be a really fun experience, and the food is supposed to be very good, so that's something that I would like to try. Next, we come to the Italy Pavilion. The Italy Pavilion has two table service restaurants. My favorite thing about the Italy Pavilion is just the architecture. It's kind of set up to look like Venice. Like it has gondola boats and it has the tower, and it's really neat architecture, and I just enjoy looking at that. It makes you feel like you're in a plaza in Italy. And one thing I would like to try in the Italy Pavilion that I have not is to eat at Via Napoli. I've heard basically all positive reviews about Via Napoli, and that is one restaurant that I would like to try. Okay, so we've reached basically the halfway point around the World Showcase Lagoon. If you were looking straight across from Future World, what you're looking at is the American Adventure Pavilion. And this is basically the United States represented in World Showcase. And it has one counter service restaurant, which was recently changed to Sam Eagle's Smokehouse. It's like a barbecue restaurant, and Sam Eagle from the Muppets theming. The other thing it has is an attraction called the American Adventure, which is a show with animatronics, and it teaches you about American history. And it's very good. It is long. It's nice because you get to get inside into air conditioning and sit down, and it's a good 20-some minutes long. I often fall asleep when we're in there, so if you need a nap, that might be a good one. There are some really great singers called the American Voices that sing in the lobby before you go into the American Adventure. And on that note, also in that lobby, there's something called the American Heritage Gallery, which has cool artifacts and artwork and stuff from American history, and that happens to be my favorite thing in the American Adventure Pavilion. There is nothing in the American Adventure Pavilion that I have not tried, so I don't have anything for that one. Okay, continuing clockwise around World Showcase, the next pavilion that we come to is Japan. Japan has one signature dining restaurant, two additional table service restaurants, and two counter service restaurants. Given how many restaurants there are in the Japan Pavilion, I have never eaten there. So I don't know. I've never actually tried Japanese food, and I'd probably like it. I like Chinese food, and I think they're fairly similar, but I've never tried any of the restaurants in the Japan Pavilion, and I actually don't really care if I do. My favorite thing about the Japan Pavilion is going up to kind of one of the counter service restaurants. There's like these little Japanese gardens that you can walk through that I think are really pretty. But there's nothing that I really want to try in the Japan Pavilion. The next one that we come to is Morocco. Morocco has two table service restaurants and one counter service restaurant. And like I mentioned, it does have kind of a little museum area. You can also meet Jasmine and Aladdin in the Morocco Pavilion, kind of like Italy. One of my favorite things about the Morocco Pavilion is the architecture. It really feels immersive, like you're in the streets of Casablanca or something, and you can wander way back into the pavilion through these little alleyways and shops and stuff, and it's just really cool. And I just like to explore in there. Something that I would like to try in the Morocco Pavilion is any restaurant. I have never tried any of the restaurants in the Morocco Pavilion, and I've heard good things about all of them. So I'd just like to try a restaurant in the Morocco Pavilion. I don't really care which one. The next pavilion that we come to is France. France is one of my favorite pavilions as well. France contains one signature dining restaurant, one table service restaurant, two counter service restaurants, and a crepe stand. Okay. They have a lot of food options in the France Pavilion. And then there is also a film called Impressions de France, and that is supposed to be getting updated, I think, eventually. Is it? They recently upgraded the films in China and Canada, and I thought they were going to update the France one too, but I'm not sure. They've added now a Beauty and the Beast sing-along in the theater that Impressions de France shows in, and they kind of alternate at different times. I've heard some not so good things about that Beauty and the Beast sing-along. It's not exactly, it adds some elements to the story that some people haven't been a real fan of. So I don't really have any interest in seeing that. I do not like the Impressions de France film. I love the music and I love sitting down in the air-conditioned theater, but that film is really old. It's very dated, and you can tell watching it, like, I think they filmed it in the 80s, but it almost looks like the 70s. It's pretty bad. My favorite thing in the France Pavilion is the Les Halles Boulangerie and Patisserie, which is one of the counter service restaurants. I just like, they have such an endless variety of things to choose. The one downside of it is there's not really much seating, and so you kind of have to take your stuff with you most of the time, but it's just glad you walk around in like a horseshoe, and there's glass cases with just tons of sandwiches and treats and desserts and stuff to look at, and I always have such a hard time deciding, and everything I've gotten from there is always delicious. One thing that I would like to try in the France Pavilion that nobody has tried yet, it's something new that hopefully will be opening. It was supposed to open here in the summer of 2020, and hopefully it will open when Walt Disney World reopens, and that is the Ratatouille Ride. And I'm not exactly sure what the official name was. I got a survey way back a while ago asking me what I thought they should name the Ratatouille Ride, and I can't remember what they actually decided. Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, maybe? But I'm really excited about that ride. They only have it in Disneyland Paris up to this point, and so I'm excited to try that ride when we go back to Disney World. The next pavilion that we come to in our clockwise circle around World Showcase Lagoon is the United Kingdom. This is also one of my favorite pavilions. I love the United Kingdom. United Kingdom Pavilion has one table service restaurant, one counter service restaurant, one bar, which is connected to the table service restaurant. And my favorite thing in the United Kingdom Pavilion is the shops. On the outside, it looks like a whole street of little shops, but when you go inside, they're actually all connected, and it's actually one big continuing store, and you kind of go on forever. And oh, you can also meet Mary Poppins and Winnie the Pooh in the UK Pavilion. And I probably forgot somebody that you could meet someplace else. Mulan, I think you can, yeah, you can meet Mulan in the China Pavilion. I think you can meet Snow White in the Germany Pavilion. And you can meet Belle in the France Pavilion. Sorry about that. Okay, so in the United Kingdom, in these shops, I always find way too much stuff that I want to buy. And I don't know if it's because I lived in London, but I love everything in those shops. And I always joke to the kids when we go, I should have set a budget just to buy stuff in the UK shops, because I always find so many things that I want to buy in the UK shops. And then one thing that I would like to try in the UK Pavilion is I would really like to eat at Rose and Crown Dining Room. We've never tried that, and I would really enjoy trying that. Okay, and then the last pavilion that currently exists in World Showcase that we come to is Canada. And so if when you came into World Showcase, if you had gone to the right instead of the left, you would come to Canada first. I also want to mention that there is a second entrance to Epcot. It's the International Gateway, and you can come in there from the Epcot resorts, Yacht Club, Beach Club, Boardwalk, the Swan and Dolphin. You can actually walk from those resorts in through that gateway. There are also boats from those resorts and from Hollywood Studios that come to that entrance. And that's where the Disney Skyliner comes. So a lot more people, since the Skyliner opened, a lot more people are coming in that way than used to. It used to be kind of a hidden secret entrance and not many people came in that way. When we were there last, the Skyliner hadn't opened yet, so I haven't gotten a chance to see how much busier that entrance has become. But when you come in that way, you come in between France and the UK. So that's kind of where that entrance is. Okay, so going back to the Canada Pavilion, which is our last pavilion, there is very limited dining in the Canada Pavilion. There's only one signature dining restaurant, and I've never eaten there. And then my favorite thing in the Canada Pavilion is the landscaping. Two specific things. They have a kind of imitation of the Bouchard Gardens in Victoria, Canada, in one area. And then when you go back deep into the Canada Pavilion, you go through these neat walkways and like caverns, and there's big waterfalls and stuff they're really cool. And I love that. That's my favorite part. And then one thing that I've never done in the Canada Pavilion is to see the film. I never saw the old film, and now it used to be a Canada 360 film with Martin Short narrating. Well, now they've gotten rid of that one, and now it's called Canada Far and Wide, and that's new since just this year, and I think it came out in January maybe, and I have not seen that, and so I would really like to see that film. So that's it. Those are my favorites and things I would like to try in all of the World Showcase pavilions. I'd like to hear what your favorites are and maybe some things that you'd like to try down in the comments below. If you liked this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please be sure to subscribe. I really appreciate it and helps support the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today, everyone. Safe travels.